So I know that we were talking before about how that can be tied to our values. Do you want to talk more about how you combine overcoming experiential avoidance with values work?
Yeah, so I think values are a really important part in like then actually reorienting ourselves toward the kind of life that we actually want to be living. And when we're thinking about experiential avoidance, it's really driven by that urge of getting away from difficult internal experiences. And what we're doing with values is kind of the opposite of that. So we really want to be thinking about what is it that is important to me? How do I want to be living my life and creating motivation and willingness to be with all the difficult feelings and thoughts also in the service of living the kind of life that's rich and meaningful to you.
How do people get there? How do you help
Yeah,
people identify what they value?
yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, often we start with just really asking that question, what is important to you? And if we take a step back from that, often we're getting so caught up in our fight with anxiety or our fight with other difficult feelings or thoughts that, just slowing down and coming back to that question in the first place can be helpful in like, oh, okay, yeah, what is actually important for me? If anxiety wasn't here, what would I actually be doing?
I
And
love that question.
yeah, me too. It often kind of stops people in their tracks of like, wait, what, there is another way of looking at that? Like, what would that actually be?
Mhm.
What would I actually want to be doing? And then we have different ways of exploring that more. So we can do that, for example, by perspective taking. We can think about, if I would look back on my life when I'm, let's say, 80 years old, what would be the moments that I wish I would have had in my life? Or we can look back at your life and see, like, in the past, have there been any moments where you were feeling really alive and really like noticing that richness and fullness of your experience in that moment? And we can try to really drop into that. So often I would prompt people to close their eyes if that's comfortable to them, and just settling in and getting in touch with what they're feeling in the moment, and then just thinking about a moment in the past that's connected to an area of their life that's important to them, and think about a moment that had that kind of quality where they were really feeling like, this is a moment where I truly feel alive, or where what I'm doing feels really meaningful to me, and then connect with all the sensations that were coming up for them, and trying to see that moment again through their eyes as the person that they were back in that moment, and noticing, what was it about that moment that made it so special, that made it so meaningful for you.
That's great. That was a exercise I was just kind of doing in my head while you were talking. So thank you for that. Do you find in doing this exercise, do you find people connecting more with their older self looking back on their life, or their younger self having a really fulfilling moment? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, it really depends. So that's a part of the exploration of what resonates most with you. Sometimes what can get in the way are a lot of beliefs or concepts about how you should be living your life. So that's something that we always want to look out for also
Mhm.
is when people yeah, when you notice like, well, I think what my family would expect from me is to have that career as a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is, and so like I have to like go down that path, for example, or I live. Many of the clients that I work with live in Silicon Valley, right, and
Mhm.
are like part of this like really high pressure environment. And I heard Jim talking about also kind of that being really helpful for him to get out of an environment that was really a high pressure, high stress industry
Mhm.
for him that made it easier for him to connect with his values and noticing like, wait a minute, it's really family that I want to be with. Like this career is not as important to me. So another question that we can ask and that many people find helpful is, yeah, really, if nobody else was looking, would this still be important for you?
Mhm.
So
Yes,
kind
I love.
of weigh like all the societal expectations from our peers, expectations from our families, like any kind of outside pressure of what should you be doing to live a meaningful life.
I love that. I think that's a great question.